Rob Grimes with the IFBTA, and today I'm really pleased to be joined by Luke Fryer, the CEO and founder of Harri. They are a global industry supplier member, and welcome, Luke.
Rob, it's a pleasure to be here.
As I start to think about what's happened in the last 2 to 3 years in a gig economy, aren't there a lot of employees that also want the freedom of the gig economy and flexibility in schedule? I guess that adds a level of complexity to it because some people want the steady business and got frustrated by our industry because there wasn't enough steady business. But other people like the flexibility of scheduling. They also like doing 2 or 3 things. So is that a challenge of today?
I think if you read into the narrative and the stats around the gig economy, which is really just unpredictable ad hoc work, those numbers are not good. In fact, those numbers on a per hour basis are significantly below what our industry does pay. Now, if you think about consistency of hours, sure, we took hits to our reputation and our ability for, our reputation for stability and our ability to deliver consistent hours through, a period of time in 2020. But on any measure, like there is a deficit in the number of hours in the supply of hours to our industry, right, versus our demand as employers for those hours. So by definition, there is actually very, very consistent work there, and a lot of, we actually do deliver a lot of consistency. And by the way, in many markets today, that concept of consistency is being legislated into this, concept of predictable work or fair work week, right? But even outside those compliance markets, that's just what the best employers, not even the best, everyone has to do that. Because you're getting consistent hours, you'll leave. The problem is actually delivering, predictable consistency. If it falls on the shoulders of, our scheduling managers who already have too many things to do, right? They're not going to do it well. And that's where, technology
and
needs.
You know what? You just, I was going to ask you, I was hoping to lead you into it, but you actually led us into a conversation in a different area. You just used the word compliance in there, and you talked about fair labor and some of the governance out there. I think a lot of people underestimate what that really means in our industry and how you have to understand it. I know I had a conversation with some of your team members about some of the new labor laws in California, and we were talking about how you can step in and help to solve a problem that the industry is having out there. And there's different laws everywhere. So how do you stay on top of that? And how do you see your unique industry knowledge being more favorable and advantageous than somebody who's just a general payroll company who also has to know about compliance and issues and things like that?
So I'd say that there are a couple of key trends and we can talk about very specific laws that, our technology will do better than others.
Key trends are good.
Yeah. But, the theme in the regulations is one, more consistent, predictable scheduling for employees, which I think is obviously the right thing. And it's what we need to do as an industry anyway. Of course, the operationalization of those laws is, often extremely challenging / incoherent, right? That's one bucket. There's another bucket that says, if I'm going to change something related to the employee's time or, when they're working or when they have worked, that employee needs to agree to it. And I need to keep a record of that. All right. And then there's a very heavy focus on, breaks and time between work. Again, that ties into scheduling, but it's a slightly more, real-time flavor of managing employees' work. Now, so if we think of those themes, what comes out of that is one, a need for a significant degree of automation in terms of how you manage those rules as an employer. Why? Because they're incredibly complex. And as they work, as there's legal precedent set, things just become more, what starts as a complex regulation, by the time it finds its way through the enforcement divisions and there's a little bit of case law, these things just spin wildly out of control. Our frontline managers cannot be expected to understand, understand these laws, let alone B, make determinations in the flow of running a busy shift.
Right.
You actually have to be fully automated, right? And that's a very high bar for technology, but it's a bar that customers should expect today.
But also, and we sort of skipped over this part in the introduction, but you're not just in North America, you're a global company, you're selling globally.
Yep.
And so that actually compounds the issue. There's been a lot of conversation recently about culture, and that companies have a culture. So it's not just the hours, it's not just the scheduling, it's not just who they hire, but they're different cultures. And sometimes a company who's a global company has a different culture or practices in one part of the world versus another. So if you take the compliance, the regulations on top of it, but how do you flavor in, the culture side of it into how they manage, the whole employee landscape?
So look, I mean, our job is not to help define culture. Our job is to help a company deliver, I won't say deliver its culture, but harmonize its employees around its culture. And that's often about getting the message through. Most of our, just thinking through all the great brands, all the great chefs that we work with that just have so many really exciting things going on. A large part of their day-to-day, a large part of what we solve is, here's all the great things you're doing. A lot of them have fantastic they're not even initiatives, they're just how they do things. They offer growth opportunities. They deeply care about their people. They want to make sure people earn good money, have consistent working times, right? We don't need to help fix the cultural layer. What we need to do is help them get the message through to their teams, and actually reaching employees in an impactful way that actually gets a message through, helps the company communicate, right? That's actually been a huge challenge. And it's not about sending a push notification through to an app, because maybe you hit 10%, you actually get the message through to 10% of the people. It's actually about, how do we really find people in the flow of things they have to do to get them to, listen to the things we really want to listen.
But if we start with what was behind your thinking to get started in the first place? You had a need, you were in the industry.
Yep.
And I think what you recognize is that this industry is a lot different. And you've already said you're keeping your focus, got that, right? But you also have a corporate culture, and it starts with you and where you came from and what you were working and where you saw the need. And so it seems to me you must have pretty strong partnerships with a new client, because it's really a team effort. You can't, I think you're right. You cannot know their culture as well as they do. They define the culture. But in essence, for you to do what you're doing, they're going to come to you because you have that industry background, and you are able to take their culture and then help them with the tools, I think is what I'm hearing here, to manage their business.
I think there's managing the business, and then there's communicating and engaging with employees so they know what's going on. And so they can be excited about there's so much innovation flowing through the veins of our customers today, right? And how do they engage everyone across their organization in a way that's truly impactful? We see that as a key responsibility for us, because we're the tool that the employees are looking at to get their schedule. They're clocking in, they're clocking out, they're looking at their earnings. When we have these windows, these almost guaranteed windows of engagement, and how do we use those to help spread the culture, right? And grow the excitement with an organization. And one of the things we're seeing today is that as the market shifts from this frenetic rush to hire and some of the incredibly overheated marketplace issue we saw last year, really end of 21 and into last year, as that starts to dissipate and we start to see something a little more akin to a normal hiring marketplace, companies are now focusing on retention, and they know that they're looking for the next generation of strategy related to retention. And that is really about how we listen to employees and how we understand those employees that aren't aligned with the culture or are questioning the culture, or they're even explicitly telling us they're just not happy and why. And how do you actually do that at scale? Because if you own one restaurant, you've got your finger on the pulse and you're there, on the floor every day, you're going to get ahead of that. You're probably going to have really good retention. If you own 5 or 10, or, really once you pass sort of 200-300 employees, then you need to actually develop a strategy that helps you understand the pulse of the team at some scale. And that's really the challenge that
well, you've made a lot of headway, since 2016. And I know there's a lot of room to grow, but you actually are exploring different areas that a lot of people haven't touched with a different approach. And the IFBTA is very happy and lucky to have you as one of our key global industry partners. And it's been a pleasure, Luke Fryer, the CEO and founder of Harri, to have you join us today, and welcome to the IFBTA.
Thanks, Rob. It's a pleasure to be part of it.